Hey everybody, Charles from HumbleMechanic.com. Today, we're gonna answer the question, who makes the best ratchets? So, as you can see before me, I have a ton of ratchets laid out. And we're gonna talk a little bit about what ratchets are, what they do, the reason that we use them, some of the different styles, and which one is the best. Now remember, this is highly personalized stuff. This is my take, this is my point of view based on the ratchets that I own and the ratchets that I've used. And this is really based in the car repair world. I know in some of the truck repair worlds, there's bigger ratchets and bigger drives, but today we're focused on the most common stuff that you're gonna see. There's basically three different sizes of ratchets. We have the 1/2-inch drive, which are the biggest. We have the 3/8 drive, which is the middle size. And then we have the 1/4-inch drive, which are the tiny ones. Now, what I mean by 1/2-inch, 3/8, and 1/4-inch is actually the drive size. So you're gonna buy your sockets that go on the ratchets based on the size of the drive. You'll also decide what drive you're going to use for what application. The bigger drive sockets hold bigger sockets. The small 1/4-inch drive can hold smaller sockets. So let's say you're taking off a wheel, you're probably gonna go to your 1/2-inch drive. Let's say you're taking off a very small part, you're probably gonna go to your 1/4-inch drive, and 3/8 drive is great because it fits most of both of the sizes. There's a ton of things to consider when looking at a ratchet. One of the main things that I look at is tooth count. Inside a ratchet is a toothed wheel and a toothed lock. This will allow you to move the ratchet so that it rotates and turns clockwise or counterclockwise. And the teeth on this gear are what allow it to ratchet so you can turn it back. So for example, if I put a socket on this ratchet, this is in the off position. This would be not doing anything. That's when you'll hear it ratchet. And then when you don't hear it ratchet is when there's actually action on the socket, and then in turn action on the bolt or the nut. And when you hear this noise, this is a lower count toothed ratchet. If we switch it to a higher count tooth, it has a much finer noise. That means there's more teeth on that little wheel, which lets you move it a shorter distance on the non-action end and be able to have more action of the ratchet in a smaller space. Which is why, for the most part, I like to buy the highest tooth count ratchet I can buy. This one, for example, is a snap-on ratchet that's an 88 tooth count. This Craftsman one and this snap-on one are much higher tooth count ratchets. And then we have a Kobalt ratchet here, which is actually, sounds like it's got a pretty high tooth count, but we'll talk more about this one in just a minute. There's two other things that I really focus on when I'm looking at a ratchet. Once I decided what drive I need, I look at the grip. This one, for example, this is a big 1/2-inch drive. This has a comfort grip, so this is a rubber handle at the end of it. I actually mentioned this in my top 5 favorite tools video. I'll put a link to that up for you guys to check out. So some of them have a comfort grip, some of them have almost the exact same grip, but don't have the comfort end on it. These are both here snap-on ratchets. You can see this one too, this is another snap-on. They look almost identical, it's just that the bigger one has the comfort grip. Then we look at 2 1/2-inch drives. You can see the snap-on one has the rounded handle and the Craftsman one has a square handle. The rounded handle is considerably more comfortable when you're having to put a lot of torque on a bolt to either tighten it or loosen it. For me, I really don't love the comfort grip. I like it on the big snap-on ratchet because I'm usually applying more torque with this bigger ratchet. On the smaller ones, I really don't like it because it bulks up the ratchet itself. So you add maybe 3 millimeters around on this ratchet, that may prevent you from getting in the small places that these ratchets are meant to be used in. We also want to look at size. I showed you the big giant snap-on one. We kind of moved down here into smaller Craftsman and snap-on 1/2-inch drives. We have a decent selection of 3/8 drives here. This is a flexible one we'll talk about in just a second. And then we move into the 1/4-inch drive where it becomes really important. If you're using 1/4-inch drive, odds are you're working in a much smaller space. Out of all the ratchets that I own, this 1/4-inch drive is the one that sees the most use. It's just over 6.5 inches long as compared to the smaller snap-on 1/4-inch drive. But you want to look at that handle length and gauge what you're doing versus how much leverage you need. Obviously, the longer the handle, the more leverage you're going to be able to get. So the more torque you're going to be able to apply. And working on Volkswagens, we have a lot of bolts that need a lot of torque to either loosen or tighten them, and we work in really small spaces, which is why this one is one of my favorites. We also have our purpose-built ratchets. Ratchets like this one, which have a curved handle and a flexible head. This is cool because it goes from being a regular ratchet to basically being a speed handle when you put a socket on the end of it. This is the ratchet that I use to take out spark plugs or put in spark plugs. You'll be able to twist it like this and get a fast motion on it in a place where you may not want to use a power tool. We also have just the straight flexible head like this big one where the head can flex up or down depending on which way you need it. So if you have something in the way, say right here, you can move it a little bit and get better access to the bolt that you're trying to take out. We also have really cool ones like this one. While it looks exactly like the 1/4 inch drive one, this is actually a 3/8 drive in what's basically a 1/4 inch drive body. So this will allow me to use a bigger socket, say a 16 millimeter in a much smaller space. If I wanted to use a 16 millimeter is really an uncommon size for 1/4 inch. I'd either have to find the socket in 1/4 inch drive or use an adapter to make this 1/4 inch drive fit a 3/8 socket. So what I did was I went ahead and bought this one, which I don't use all the time, but I'll tell you when I need it, it's an awesome ratchet to have. All right, let's talk brands. I have 4 brands of ratchets here. I have Snap-on, I have Craftsman. Yes, this is not a ratchet, this is a breaker bar. I just happened to grab it on my way out of the shop today. But I have Snap-on, I have Craftsman, I have one Kobalt ratchet, and I have one Matco ratchet. Now, if you look at the Snap-on and the Kobalt, they look very similar in design. These are both 3/8 drive ratchets. The thing that I don't like about the Kobalt, and it's not a big deal, and it's something that anyone can easily overcome, but it's just different from everything else that I have. So when you're working on a production line and trying to get cars done fast, anything that throws your game off can make a job take longer, and the whole point is to get things done as efficiently as possible. So you'll notice that these switches are both in the same position. The Kobalt, with that switch in that position, will actually loosen a bolt, while the Snap-on one will tighten a bolt. It's more of a consistency of the switch thing for me. You'll have times where you just kind of reach over, grab your ratchet, you put your thumb on the button to feel where it is, and then now all of a sudden you're tightening a bolt instead of loosening a bolt. Again, it's not anything anyone can't overcome, it's just one of those things that can slow you down. And there's the Matco ratchet. This one is actually a pretty good ratchet. It's got a great length of the handle. It's actually longer than the Snap-on one that I like so much. But it just doesn't have the grip comfort that the comparable Snap-on one has. In addition to that, this is a much lower tooth count than its Snap-on counterpart. And again, that becomes incredibly important when you're working in small spaces. So that leaves us with the question, who makes the best ratchets? Well, in my opinion, Snap-on makes the best ratchets. Yes, they're expensive, but you really do get what you pay for in a Snap-on ratchet versus a Craftsman ratchet versus a Kobalt or a Stanley or the Home Depot brand or the things you buy like All Trade that Target sells or the tools that you buy at, say, AutoZone. There's nothing wrong with most of those tools, but from a professional standpoint, Snap-on really does make the best ratchets. Now, what if you're not a professional? What if you're a DIYer or a weekend warrior, or you just need to buy some tools to fix your car, but you're gonna use them a lot at home? I think Craftsman Pro makes great ratchets. I actually had a Craftsman Pro ratchet almost exactly like this. I tried to find it. It's buried in the garage or somewhere in my toolbox. I thought it was an incredible ratchet. It's very comparable to the Snap-on ratchet. When it comes to the standard Craftsman ratchets, I really don't like the grip handle nearly as much as the rounded Snap-on ones. And from the ones that I own, on all of them, the tooth count of the ratcheting mechanism is higher. So if I were just straight buying tools for the house, I would probably go towards Craftsman because they do make great tools. And while Snap-on I do think is better, Snap-on is really expensive. So it's a little bit harder to justify all that money if you're only gonna be using it, say, a few times a month. Now, what about the person that just says, I know I need some tools and I wanna buy a kit and keep it in my garage and hopefully I'll never have to use it? Any of it's fine. Even the ratchets from Harbor Freight and Northern Tool can be really good product. And heck, there's even professionals that rely a lot on Northern Tool and Harbor Freight ratchets. I have a Harbor Freight breaker bar that I bought before I started at the dealership that I still use today. So it's what, 12 years old, something like that. And it's never failed, it's never had any kind of hiccup or anything, and I think I paid $12 for it. I bet you if you bought a similar Snap-on breaker bar like that, it would be over $100. So there's value in all of them, whether you're a weekend warrior type wrencher or you're a professional. Buy what you like, it's up to you. In the end, you're the one that has the tool in your hand using it, so really, it's up to you. But for me, if I have a choice, I'm gonna reach for a Snap-on ratchet just about every time. And one more little tidbit, if you're spending any decent amount of money on a ratchet or any other tool really, make sure it has a lifetime warranty. Most tools actually do have a lifetime warranty. Some of them are really easy to execute a replacement on. I think I've had this one from Craftsman replaced a few times. Those are easy to get replaced because all you have to do is bring it into the store. The Snap-on ones a lot of times don't get replaced. The Snap-on guy or girl will just actually take the screws out and put new guts inside the ratchet head. And with the Kobalt and the other brands that are like big box store type brands, I think a lot of times you have to actually send them out. Some stores may exchange them directly, but that really depends on the store. Matco's a lot like Snap-on. You just gotta wait for the tool truck to come around and they'll get it rebuilt or replaced for you. All right, guys, the question of the day. Who makes your favorite ratchet? All right, I'm gonna wrap it up there. If you have any questions or comments, post it in the comments section below. Hey, if you liked the video, throw it a thumbs up on YouTube. I always appreciate that. You can also subscribe on YouTube or on the blog at humblemechanic.com. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, the blog, and obviously here on YouTube. All right, guys, thanks for watching, and I will see you next time. And in case I didn't say it like 500 times, this is my overall favorite ratchet. I may have actually mentioned this in my top 5 favorite tools video as well. So check that video out. It's a really old video, but it still applies today. No beer of the day. We're on the coffee trolley this week because I've gotten a late start every day this week.